Well, certainly over the last few months, there's been many of us parents that have tried homeschooling, tried remote schooling, and we have learned an awful lot. And we have certainly had an awful lot of respect given to us for those teachers that teach not just our children within the schools, but certainly those that are teaching remotely on a permanent basis. And so it is our absolute honour today to have the Alice Springs School of the Air with us. And I would really love to introduce you to Marilyn. Hello, Marilyn.
Good morning. How are you today?
Look, I'm so well, and I'm really excited actually to hear more about the Alice Springs School of the Air. And I know you guys have been doing this for a very long time. We at home have only had a very small insight into what it feels like to teach remotely, but you guys are the absolute experts, and you've got a 70th birthday coming up next year. So you certainly have been doing it for a very long time.
We have been doing it for a very long time. In fact, Alice Springs School of the Air was the very first school to teach remotely in this fashion. So we believe that we are the leaders of online, or the forebearers of online education. So 70 years.
Look, I would definitely have to agree with you there. It's really quite extraordinary. And I'm really excited to hear today about how you teach. I can see a couple of teachers in the background there setting up for their next lessons, which is just awesome. So, Marilyn, maybe you'd like to tell us a little bit about what's happening in the background there and a day in the life of one of your students.
Absolutely. So you can see here in Studio One, here at School of the Air, we have 4 studios. Our biggest one right here behind us. So that is Studio One. And we've got Julie View just setting up for her preschool and transition children this morning. So in that studio, Julie has a number of cameras. In fact, she has 3 cameras that she's going to be using. She's got 2 computers that she's using. And we will hear her coming on the screen right now. So we're just going to pan up and show you the screen. Now, up on this screen, that's exactly what the children at home will be seeing right at this moment.
How gorgeous. And from these studios, you do have lessons for students anywhere from the pre-prep or the transitional ages, which obviously is going to go into a lesson now, but also right through to the middle school years as well.
That's right. So we start with preschool. So here in the Northern Territory, a preschooler is aged 4, and we go right through to year 9. So we do preschool, then transition, grade 1, right through to grade 9, aged 15. The children can do here, so right through the end of middle school years. For their senior years, 10, 11 and 12, they do need to find an alternative education system, maybe boarding school, or they can continue with this type of learning, but it comes out of Darwin.
Right, very interesting. And so it makes me then start to think about, well, what does a day look like for a typical student? Perhaps maybe the junior schools, when they are in school from grade 1 through to grade 6, what does that look like? What are their lesson plans?
So every class has a website, and on that website, they have a detailed plan for each day of the week. They will have a face-to-face lesson like we've got happening here behind us, where they are seeing their teacher and their teacher is teaching them rather than them doing other stuff. That actually, it's a learning time. They will have at least 2 of these sessions a day. So that's 2 half-hour sessions. With the little kids, that's enough time for that. But for the rest of the day, from 8:30 in the morning till 2:30 in the afternoon, they are expected to be in school, and they do have activities set throughout that time. So this morning at 8:30, we had phys ed lessons right here in this studio. All of the children can log into those phys ed lessons. And the other activities they might do at times through the day, where they have face-to-face lessons but not with their teacher, is they might have an art class. So art class on Friday afternoons for everyone in primary years. They can learn ukulele, they can learn guitar, and they can learn Japanese. So that's all lessons coming out of here as well, using this technology. And then for the rest of the day at home, the children have to have, or certainly the smaller children, have to have a home tutor. So we believe the home tutor through COVID has been our secret weapon. So the home tutor, it might be mum or it might be dad or it might be grandma, but often it might be a paid governess. So it removes the children, it removes that tension from mum and the kids trying to get them to do what they're told, and the tutor steps into that role. Now, the tutor's not a teacher. She's just the conduit between school and the child. She's the one on the ground. She's seeing what's happening on the ground, so she's a great resource for the teacher, but she doesn't have to plan lessons. She doesn't have to set curriculum. She just has to make sure the work's done and that the children are functioning properly. So she's with the kids, particularly in the smaller grades, all day long. She'll be checking that timetable on their website and making sure they're doing the right stuff at the right time, and that they log into what we call IDL lessons, interactive distance learning lessons, when their teacher is live on the screen for them. So through the rest of the day, they'll be doing learning. They'll have a teaching lesson where the teacher's face-to-face, but for the rest of the day, it's concreting that learning, maths activities, English activities, art activities, science activities, whatever. Just as in a normal classroom, the teacher teaches some of the day and some of the day is learning time. Same here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's an incredible system, and it sounds like it's been working extraordinarily well for the last 70 years. I'm curious to know, because all the School of the Air centres, I guess there's a few around the country and they're located in different areas and they run separately. But for Alice Springs School of the Air, I'm curious to know how many students are actually enrolled at the moment.
Okay, so we'll take a look at our map over here. At the present point in time, we've got 155 students enrolled, and that, as I said, is from preschool through to the end of year 9. And they sit predominantly in the bottom half of the Northern Territory. So from about Elliott's sort of the invisible line in the territory. Above that's the north, below that's the south, and we look after all of the southern part of the Northern Territory. But we do accept students from other states as well. So, for example, if someone lives just over into Queensland, Western Australia or South Australia, then they are able to enrol in Alice Springs School of the Air so long as they use Alice Springs as their centre. They come here to shop, they come here for medical, they might sell their cattle through Alice Springs, that sort of stuff. So long as they've got that connection, they can join us here at Alice Springs School of the Air. So most of our students, as you can see, are in this part of the state. Our most remote family is out here at Supplejack Downs in the Tanami Desert, just beside the WA border. That family has been on that station for 4 generations. 3 of those generations have done School of the Air.
Wow.
They are 760 kilometres from town. Though one of the kids from out there told us one day quite indignantly that they did not live 760 kilometres from town. They are actually only 700 kilometres from town because the last 60 kilometres is their driveway.
Oh my goodness. Fair enough too.
They're our most remote family. Another iconic property that we have with us is a South Australian property, and that's Anna Creek Station. So Anna Creek Station was part of the Kidman portfolio of properties. In a few years ago, the Kidman properties were sold to Gina Rinehart in conjunction with the Chinese. The government wouldn't let Gina buy Anna Creek Station because of its proximity to Woomera Rocket Station. So that was sold to a private family corporation. And those guys, once again, they're probably about the same distance. They would be between 700 and 800 kilometres from Alice Springs, but well down into South Australia. Their oldest child joined us last year for preschool and this year is in transition.
Wow. That's awesome.
But we also have families that are travelling. Mm-hmm. So we have a young boy that lives in Queensland, but for 9 months of the year, their family travel through the Northern Territory drilling for water. And so every day he may be somewhere different, or certainly every week he may be somewhere different. But with him, he travels with his classroom on the back of a truck. and his governess. So it doesn't matter where he is, he does school. He's in the same classroom, he's got the same teacher, sitting at the same desk, but doing his schooling wherever he goes.
Wherever
So
he
he's a
is.
travelling family, travelling for work. We can have travelling families also that are travelling for pleasure, and they might be doing the big lap, but not so many of them this year.
Yeah, right. Isn't that interesting? And I mean, education is just so incredibly important. And I think it's extraordinary that this level of schooling can be offered to those students that are travelling or perhaps that are a little bit too far away from town. But on that note, I understand that this is for isolated children. But do you ever have times where those that are a little bit closer can come together in a bit of a school environment?
So we do. So School of the Air was initially developed for our isolated students. And back in the day, that meant they were geographically a long way from a school. In fact, one of our families from the 60s were half a day from town then, but now they're stationed and it hasn't moved, but they are now 30 minutes from town with the
Wow.
improvement to roads. So that's an interesting, the kids out on that property these days actually drive in every day to go to school. So that's changed somewhat our demographic because the roads have improved dramatically. But the children do need to be isolated in some way. So that generally means they're at least 50 kilometres from their closest school. But it might also mean that they're isolated in another way. They may be socially isolated. They may be emotionally isolated. Or, in fact, for a short period of time, they may be isolated due to health issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they can still do School of the Air.
Yeah, that's excellent, extraordinary. How many teachers, I'm wondering, are with Alice Springs School of the Air?
So we have 11 teachers here at Alice Springs School of the Air, a cross-section of teachers. So our deputy principal is a special needs teacher. We have our principal who has got a very deep understanding of School of the Air. So her husband is a nurse. They lived remotely when her children were small. So she was a home tutor to her very own children living at Papunya, which is west of Alice Springs. Then she moved into town. She became a teacher here at School of the Air. Then she went off and taught in other schools, and then she came back as our principal. So she understands completely how School of the Air functions and what's needed from the parents' side as well. We have our middle school teachers who are subject-specific teachers, and then our primary school teachers are all assigned as a set year level. So they have the same kids every day, just like in a normal primary school. And then another two of our teachers, and looking at our map again, are based out here at Corella Creek. So Corella Creek is in fact an Indigenous community. Now, many years ago, that Indigenous community, like all Indigenous communities, had its own school. But for some reason, everyone moved away from that community, so the school closed. And then over time, as people returned to that community, there was no school. They needed a school out there. The education department approached us and said, will you look after these children? We said, of course we will. That's what we do. But you need a home tutor with those kids who's got good reading and writing skills. So what we did there is we sent two of our teachers out to that community. We now have around about 20 to 25 kids. It does fluctuate a bit, but two of our 11 teachers are actually based out there at that community. Those teachers can teach other kids. Those kids can do lessons with other teachers using our technology, but they've got two guiding figures out there with them all of the time.
Yeah, that must be so incredible for those students out there to have those permanent figures and somebody to be able to assist them in their everyday learnings and to be on hand with them. I think that's amazing. And you mentioned, of course, the specialist teachers for the middle school, as exactly you would expect when going to a high school, and that is through until the ages of 15. The work that you guys do is just absolutely extraordinary. School of the Air, as you say, is most definitely in the forefront, the front runner of the remote learning for students. And I know as a parent who attempted homeschooling very poorly, I must say, I wish I had all of your knowledge at that time, because it's really quite incredible. The Alice Springs School of the Air Visitors Centre is, of course, open at the moment, isn't it, Marilyn, for people to be able to call in and experience School of the Air firsthand.
Absolutely. So we are here currently only 5 days a week. Normally we would be open 7 days a week, but with the downturn, we have to watch the dollars. So we are here Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, and people can come in and experience, as you said, School of the Air. They can sit here and watch a lesson as it happens, just as we've got happening now. All of our lessons are also recorded. So even if you come out of school time or there is no lesson happening at that time, you can see a lesson still in action. You just won't see the teacher sitting there in the studio.
Yeah, at least very good feel.
We are a tourist attraction, so we welcome families and any sort of traveller to come through and just find out what it's all about. And it's been interesting this year. We have had quite a few people through that have had a bit of an understanding of School of the Air, or on the other hand, those that have tried to teach at home, or they know, or their grandchildren are overseas. Some people coming through, their grandchildren are in the USA and they're doing remote learning at the moment. So they want to get a little bit of an insight into it.
Oh, fantastic. That's brilliant. I love that you guys are open and that we can come and visit you when we're in the Northern Territory. And certainly we will pop a link into the comments here for anybody who is looking for opportunities to get through to the Northern Territory on their next holiday. Domestic travel and domestic visitors, I'm sure, to the Visitors Centre is going to be a huge thing for 2021. Gosh, I'm getting confused with my years. 2021, we're expecting to see a lot of Australians travel around Australia, and being that Alice Springs School of the Air really is quite an icon of the Northern Territory, it would be amiss for us to not call in to see how it all works and to support you. I certainly appreciate that a lot of the funding comes from fundraising, which has been quite challenging this year. So if you can't make it to the Northern Territory, or perhaps in advance you would like to make a donation to the Alice Springs School of the Air, I know it would be very much welcomed by the teachers and students, and we will certainly put a note in the comments here for you to do that after this session as well.
Yes, absolutely. So we are the fundraiser for the school, and that's why the Visitor Centre was initially established back in 1996. People were just turning up at the school, actually. So then they thought, well, we can actually make some money out of this. Whilst the Northern Territory government does fund us, they fund us to the same level as other schools. It costs us more to operate. So we just top up with all these wonderful people that visit here, or make donations online.
I think that's incredible. Look, that has been just, I'm so grateful for your time. I'm so grateful for everything that you do at School of the Air. It has been a really beautiful insight into your everyday comings and goings of teachers and students. And I personally look forward to calling by and saying hi when I come through the Northern Territory next year. And I'm sure many other people will as well. Thank you so much for your time, Marilyn. It's been tremendous.
Thank you, and we look forward to many, many visitors, not just here at School of the Air, but certainly in Alice Springs and Central Australia in 2021.
I love that. Thank you. Bye for now.